It is now just over 1 month until the Premier League season starts, so I think today is the perfect time to do our early Premier League predictions. Now, I just want to note to everyone watching that this video was obviously recorded a few days before it came out, so things might have changed. In this video I'll talk about players being linked. By the time this video comes out, they may have actually signed, so things might change, and I'm going to do an updated prediction. But yeah, without further ado, there's not much more we have to really talk about. We're going to be using a tier maker list, which you can see on the screen now. And yeah, we're going to go through each club one by one. Well, not each club, but we're going to go from 20 to first all the way to see who wins the Premier League. So let's jump straight into it. And finishing bottom of the table, all the way in 20th place, we have Burnley. Now, last time Burnley finished in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, they only got 24 points, but they didn't finish bottom because, Sheffield United were awful. They finished one from bottom. Now, as this video is being recorded, they have signed a winger from Lazio called Loom Tushauna. I've probably absolutely butchered that name. And of course, they have signed Kyle Walker, which, to be honest, is a great signing for them. And I personally think he could have gone to, a team higher up in the table than Burnley, but it's a good signing for Burnley. They have got an experienced signing with Kyle Walker. Maybe he's going to help the younger players. But I think Burnley are really going to struggle. I think all the promoted teams are going to struggle because the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is so big. And I'm going to have Burnley finishing rock bottom. Moving up to 19th place, and we have Leeds United. Leeds are unbelievable at home. Everyone knows it. Elland Road is a very great place to go in terms of atmosphere, but if you're the away team, then it's not a good place to go, if that makes sense, because it's always a hard place to win. So yeah, the home form will help Leeds in games that are kind of hard to win. But I do think Leeds will sack Daniel Farke before Christmas. That is my prediction. I think if Leeds get off to a really bad start, it could even be 4 or 5 games into the season. As soon as the Championship season finished, there was talks about Leeds actually sacking him because I don't think he's going to do a good job in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see how much time they actually give him. Now, Leeds have already signed 3 defenders, so they're clearly trying to be solid at the back, but they do need a goal scorer because Joel Perot is not going to get that many goals for them. So they do need a goal scorer. So that's why I'm putting Leeds in 19th place. In the last relegation place, we have West Ham United. Now, since Graham Potter took over, he has won 5, drew 5, and lost 9. And again, I do think if West Ham get off to a bad start, I think Graham Potter will be another manager that will be sacked before Christmas. Now, in terms of West Ham, of course, Mikel Antonio was out through a really nasty injury. He's going to be coming back into the season, so it's going to be interesting to see how he does. But I think West Ham's season all depends on Jared Bowen. Of course, there's talks about Mohamed Kudus going to Spurs, but I think West Ham's biggest problem is Jared Bowen. Not that he is a problem, but I mean, if they sell him, I think they might be in trouble. West Ham have been on the decline now, and I think this could be the year that we finally see them get relegated. West Ham are finishing 18th. Finishing in 17th place, just 1 place above the bottom 3, we have Sunderland. Now, Sunderland, as this video is coming out, I've already spent 50 million, and they're linked with so many more players. Now, when I've been to Sunderland away, the Stadium of Light is an absolutely amazing place to go in terms of the home support and atmosphere. And I think they're going to carry Sunderland in a lot of games this season. I think they're going to push them over the line. And I think the fans are going to win points for Sunderland, if that makes sense. They do need a serious goal scorer, though. I think that's an obvious statement for the teams that have come up. They need someone who's going to score at least 10-15 goals a season if they want to stay up. But with all the money that Sunderland has spent so far, and they haven't just bought rubbish players, they've kind of been smart about it, I think they're going to stay up and they'll finish 17th. Moving on to 16th place, and I've gone with Brentford. Thomas Frank is a big, big loss. I really like him. I'm not going to lie, I think he's a really good manager. So Brentford losing him is a massive loss for them. Now, Keith Andrews, who is, of course, their new manager, actually got rejected at MK Dons a few months ago, and let's be honest, he's basically a pundit. That's what he's most known for, being on Sky Sports, especially Championship games. Brian Mbeumo has basically just been massively linked to Man United and a little bit going to Spurs to rejoin Thomas Frank the whole summer, and I think if Brentford let him go, I think they might be in trouble. There's also talks that Wissa could also leave and go to Spurs with Thomas Frank, so I think Brentford are going to lose quite a few players this summer, and I don't know. I feel like Thomas Frank leaving is such a big loss. I don't think the manager appointment's going to work that well. And I've put Brentford in 16th. Moving on to 15th place, and I've gone with Wolves. Now, since Vitor Pereira took over at Wolves, he has done an absolutely amazing job. He won 12, lost 10, and drew 3. That's a pretty good record. He basically kept him up. And of course, at Wolves, the fans love him. You know, there was videos and pictures of him literally at a pub with the Wolves fans. Like, he's massively loved there. Wolves have lost a few players. Of course, they've lost Aït-Nouri to Man City, and they've lost Cunha. And they are two massive, massive losses, especially Cunha. Now, last season, Strand Larsen did okay. They've now made that move permanent. He got 14 goals. Is he really going to replace Cunha? I don't think so. I don't think Wolves are in any trouble. They have got money to spend, obviously, like I said, with Aït-Nouri and Cunha going. And I think they're going to be around the mid-table section, the lower half of mid-table anyway. So yeah, Wolves are going to finish 15th place. Moving on to 14th place, and we have Everton. David Moyes has brought back a feel-good factor to Everton. Now, since his return, he has got 8 wins, 7 draws, and 5 losses. And of course, Everton have a new stadium to look forward to. However, as we've seen with West Ham, a new stadium can go two ways. They can either basically just love the stadium and be really good there because there's more fans, you know, bigger atmospheres, bigger noise, you know, stuff like that. Or it can be like West Ham, which is an awful, awful stadium. You know, it's just not good, is it? The problem with building a new stadium, just like Spurs had and just like West Ham had, because you spend so much money on a stadium, you don't have that much money to spend. Now, of course, Everton have been linked with the Villarreal striker, something Barry, I can't remember his first name, basically the whole summer. And I think he's going to be a good young signing if they do complete that one. David Moyes is going to do a good job at Everton. He's been there. He knows what the club is about. I don't think there's going to be any trouble of Everton going down. So I'm putting Everton in 14th place. Moving on to 13th place now, and we have Bournemouth. Now, Iraola has done an amazing job since he's left there. Kluivert was great last season. I mean, 18 goals and assists in 37 games for a mid-table team is amazing. Of course, Bournemouth have lost Dean Huijsen to Real Madrid, and they've lost Kerkez to Liverpool, and they are two massive pieces of their defensive backline that they need to replace. Bournemouth basically have solidified themselves now as a Premier League team. They're not going to get relegated, but unless they replace the defenders that they've lost, they might be in trouble in terms of not being able to push for Europe again like they was this season. Bournemouth are going to be mid-table. I think that's pretty comfortable for them. They'll take that. And Bournemouth are going to finish in 13th place. Moving on to 12th place, and we have boring Fulham. Now, Fulham basically just finished mid-table every season. Not that it's anything bad. They're not ever really down there by the relegation places, but they're never really pushing for Europe either. Of course, Fulham do need a goal scorer because Raul Jimenez is just not enough. He's getting on. He's not scoring the goals that he used to. And they need a really good goal scorer. Marco Silva is a great manager. I just want to say that. I think he's done a really good job there. He was good at Everton when he was there, and I'm pretty sure he was somewhere else. He was somewhere else, but I can't remember where he was. But yeah, Fulham are a mid-table team. There's not going to be a promotion push. They're going to finish in 12th place. Moving on to 11th place, and we have the team that basically finishes mid-table every season, Crystal Palace. Now, of course, Crystal Palace won the FA Cup, and they will be playing in the Conference League because, of course, the Europa League was taken away from them because of this whole Lyon situation, and I do feel a little bit sorry for them. But yeah, FA Cup win, everyone's buzzing. They will be playing in Europe again, and to be fair, they could get pretty far in the Conference League. You know, I think Glasner's a really good manager. I think he's done a great job since he's been there, and he can really get them quite far in the Conference League. They really need to make sure they keep their key players. The problem is when you have such a good season and like win the FA Cup, everyone's watching your players, especially Eze. I feel like if Eze stays, then it'll be good for Palace. If he goes, then they might be in a little bit of trouble. And Jean-Philippe Mateta as well. You know, he's a great player. He had a good season last season despite getting injured for a few games. And yeah, I think those two are the players really that they need to make sure they keep. Since Glasner took over, he has got a 46% win rate. He's got 29 wins, 18 draws and 15 losses. And like I said, he's done a great job since he's been there. So yeah, Crystal Palace are going to finish in mid-table again. They're going to have a good run in Europe though, and they're going to finish 11th. Moving on to 10th place, slap bang in the middle of the table, we've got Manchester United. Now, the reason why I've put them this high is because there's no European competition to distract them. So their full focus is going to be on the league. Now, Cunha is a good signing for Manchester United. I think he's a good attacking midfielder. You know, they need to get rid of some players around the area, and I think he's a good replacement for the ones that are going to be letting go. They have already basically got rid of a load of deadwood, you know, players that shouldn't be there anyway. But I think now they really need to sell the likes of Garnacho, they need to sell Rashford, Antony, Sancho, and use that money to build a really, really strong team. Man United, personally, I thought they would have signed Victor Gyökeres. Of course, he's got the Amarin links. He used to manage him at Sporting CP, but it looks like he's going to Arsenal instead. I still can't see Man United doing anything amazing this season. They will finish higher than last season for sure, because like I said, they haven't got Europe to distract them. They're going to be full focus on the league. But unless they sign some really good players and build a team instead of having just a group of good players, I can't see them finishing in the top half, and I've put them in 10th place. Moving on to 9th place, and we've got Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, Brighton last season was so close to European football, finishing in 8th place. Now, of course, this is manager Fabian Hürzeler's second job, and to be honest, he had a great season last season with 46%, 21 wins, 13 draws, and 11 losses. Now, so far this season, Brighton have basically spent 60 million, and they've solidified their defence massively. However, with João Pedro now leaving to go to Chelsea, although Danny Welbeck had a good season, you can't rely on him too much. Of course, they've got other good players like Mitoma. It's going to be interesting to see what Evan Ferguson does now that he's gone back to Brighton. Of course, I don't know what's happened with that guy. He looked so good, and then last season he went to West Ham and just, I don't know, I think his career might just basically go down the drain at this point somehow. But yeah, either way, they need to replace João Pedro, and when it comes to Brighton, they are pretty smart when it comes to recruitment, so I'm sure they're going to do a good job of that. Brighton are going to be pushing for European places again, but I don't think they're going to make it. I think they're going to miss out again, just short, and they're going to finish in 9th place. Moving on to 8th place, and we have Nottingham Forest. Now, of course, Nottingham Forest will be in Europe again, and I bet their fans cannot wait. They do have a very good squad. I mean, Nuno has done an absolutely amazing job. I always rated him. I think at Spurs he was very unlucky, because to be honest, everyone who goes to Spurs is just waiting to be sacked. And to be fair, I think Nottingham Forest can really go far in Europe. But it all depends on who they sign and who they let go. Anthony Elanga is set to join Newcastle, which is already a big loss for him. But there's now talks of Morgan Gibbs-White going to Spurs, which is another big loss. And if they don't replace those two players properly, Forest can really slip down the table. Chris Wood, of course, had an amazing season last season, but he's getting old. He can't play all the games in Europe and all the games in the league, so they definitely need a striker. I'm going to put trust in Forest to replace Gibbs-White and Elanga properly, and I think they're going to do a really good job. I think they're going to get Europe again, and I think they're going to finish in the 8th place. Moving on to 7th, we have got Aston Villa. Now, of course, Villa have been in the Conference League, which they should have won, and they didn't. They were in the Champions League and had a really good run last season, and now they're in the Europa League. They did miss out on Champions League on the final day after a really controversial game against Manchester United. And as long as Villa keep their key players like Martinez and Watkins, as well as adding a few additions to the squad, I think they can go really far in the Europa League. As a Blues fan, I'm going to say they're not going to win it, because I just think Villa always seem to bottle stuff like that when it really matters. But I think they're going to do a good job. I think they're going to get pretty far, and I think they'll do a good job in the league as well. Of course, Unai Emery is basically an amazing manager. He's won the Europa League so many times, so maybe his knowledge will be good and they'll actually win a European competition for once. But yeah, I think Villa's going to do a good job in the league. I think they'll get pretty far in Europe again, and they're going to finish 7th place. Moving on to 6th place, and we have got Newcastle United. Now, of course, Newcastle United ended their long trophy drought by beating Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final, and I think if they lose Isaac to Liverpool, I think they might be in trouble. As we mentioned earlier, they are in heavy talks to sign Anthony Elanga, which I think is a massive signing. I think if they complete that one, that's a very good signing for them. But to compete in Europe and the league again, I think they need to add the squad more than just Elanga. Just add some depth to the squad to make sure if they focus all out in Europe, they don't slip down the table. Eddie Howe's done a great job at Newcastle. Newcastle at home are unbelievable. The home support is very good. And I think they're going to qualify for Europe again. I think they'll finish in 6th place. Finishing in 5th place, I have put Tottenham Hotspur. Now, of course, Spurs won the Europa League, which now means they're in the Champions League again. Now, personally, in my opinion, I think Ange was sacked unfairly. You know, he did win him a title. I think maybe they should have gave him a bit of time in a new season to see who he can sign and what he can do. However, I do think Thomas Frank is a very good appointment. As I said earlier, I think he's a great manager. I loved him at Brentford. He's done a very good job there, and I'm interested to see how he can do at Spurs. Now, there are rumours that Heung-min Son is actually leaving Spurs, which will be a big loss for them. He's a very good player. He's getting old a bit, but he can still contribute. And to be honest, although they've now made Tel permanent, they don't really have a striker. I think Spurs need to spend, which is something that Spurs never really have done. Of course, getting in the Champions League will attract players. Like I said, they've also been linked with Morgan Gibbs-White, which is a very good signing. I think personally, I really do think he's a good player. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Spurs do this summer. Are they going to spend money, which they don't usually do, and get players in to try and push on? I know Levi said that they do want to win the league. I can't see that happening at all, but maybe if he spends a bit of money, then maybe, who knows? I think they're going to qualify for Europe again. They're going to have a much better season than they did last season, and I've put them in 5th place. Moving on to 4th place, and I've got Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are, of course, set to play in the Club World Cup final against PSG, and from the Club World Cup, they've basically got all the money back for all the signings that they've spent already, especially Liam Delap. Liam Delap, I'm not too sure about that, but I do think João Pedro is a great signing. Of course, they're also linked with Gittins from Dortmund, who I think is, again, a very, very good signing. I think Chelsea need to fix the issues at the back. I think, especially with the goalkeeper, there's a few issues. They do concede quite a few goals, especially from errors. But I think Chelsea are going to be very strong again. I'm excited to see how Cole Palmer does. Of course, he basically kind of slipped off towards the end of last season, and he's a player I like. I like to watch. He's an exciting player, so let's see how we can do this season. Chelsea are going to be okay. I think they're going to qualify for Champions League, and they're going to get 4th place. In 3rd place, again, I've gone for Arsenal. Now, I think Arsenal are going to finish 3rd again for like the 3rd season in a row, and this might just be the last season of Arteta. Of course, Arsenal spent big money on Zubimendi finally after being linked for so long, and I think that's a really good signing. They are also linked with Victor Gyökeres, and if they do sign him, they've finally got a big, well-known striker, which I think they've been missing for the last few seasons. Arsenal does always seem to fall short for some reason, and I think they're going to do it again. I think they're going to finish 3rd. I just don't think they've got that extra edge over Man City and Liverpool. And like I said, this could be the end of Mikel Arteta. Moving on to 2nd place, and I've gone with Manchester City. Of course, Manchester City had an absolutely nightmare period during last season, but they still finished 3rd somehow. To bring the season back the way that they did very well. Of course, Kevin De Bruyne is going to be missed. He's gone to Napoli. Yeah. But they have signed some good players, of course. Cherki is a very good signing. I think he could basically be the next Kevin De Bruyne if he stays there. He's got that potential to be that good. Of course, they've also signed Ait-Nouri, who I'm a really big fan of. He was great at Wolves. He's so good going forward. And of course, they've signed Reinders as well. Now, of course, they lost to Al Hilal in the Club World Cup, which, to be honest, they could have basically won the whole thing. Again, Haaland kind of went quiet towards the end of last season. I think he needs to have a really good season again. He basically decides if Man City are going to win the league or not. But I think Man City are going to miss out on the title again, and I think they're going to finish 2nd. That means winning the league, we have Liverpool. Now, first of all, I just want to say, obviously, rest in peace to Jota and his brother. What happened to them was absolutely horrible. And, of course, Liverpool are very, very good. They are defending champions and they've got a great squad. But I think just because of what happened to Jota, I think it's going to push them just that little bit more to win the league again. Of course, Trent left to go to Real Madrid, and Trent's one of those players where he wasn't good defensively, he was good going forward. So it's going to be a loss, but I think it might be a blessing in disguise. Of course, Liverpool have signed Frimpong and Kirkes, and they have very good signings. And of course, they've signed Florian Wirtz as well. All 3 of those players will have a lot to show. We already know Kirkes can do it in the Premier League because he did it last year at Bournemouth. But Frimpong and Wirtz, let's see what they can do. Arne Slot had a great first season at Liverpool, and now he's basically brought his own players and he's got his own team. I think they're going to be even better. Like I said, they've got a very strong squad. I think keeping Van Dijk and Salah are 2 very good. It's like basically signing a whole new player. But yeah, even though I do think they're going to win the league, I think the loss of Jota will push them just that little bit harder, and they'll become back-to-back Premier League champions. But yeah, guys, that is where I think all Premier League teams will finish. As you can see on the screen now, if you just want to take a little look, the 3 promoted teams are going to struggle. I've got Sunderland to stay up. I might be wrong. Let's see. I want you guys to let me know in the comments below, where do you think each team is going to finish, or a specific team? Who do you think is going to win the Premier League? Who do you think is going to get relegated? Stuff like that. Just let me know in the comments below. But yeah, of course, this is just my opinion. I like to think I know a little bit about football, but sometimes I get proven wrong. Football is a game where anything can happen. We all know this. If you guys did enjoy this video, then please do smash that like button. We are trying to get to 300 subscribers now. We are very close. And then after that, 500 is the big one. So yeah, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you stick around, and I promise you won't regret it.